We do have this meeting being live streamed, of course. And if you can make sure you use your microphone so people online can hear what you're saying and the room can hear as well. So just to note also, anyone attending online, if they can just make sure their cameras are on and microphones are off unless speaking, and use their virtual hand. We'll move through to our opening karakia. Please feel free to join me. Whakataka tahau ki te uru, whakataka tahau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hiaki ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei Māori. Okay, so we have apologies from Representative Helmut Modlik and Councillor Connolly as well. So those are the only apologies I believe we have. So I'll move those to in discussion. All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Okay. And obviously acknowledging we have Rawiri here and Chris, welcome, representing of course Ngāti Toa and Greater Wellington in place of those who have put their apologies in. Okay, so we'll move through to public comment. I don't believe we've got any members of the public who wish to speak. No. Moving through to conflict of interest declarations. Any conflict of interest? No. Okay, we'll move through to meeting minutes on page 9 of the agenda. So this is the meeting from the 27th of September. Any question regarding the correctness of those minutes? Happy? Okay, so I'll move that those minutes be confirmed as true and correct record. Do I have a seconder? Representative Rahina August, any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Okay, moving through to the Chair's statement. So I will speak very briefly, but just to really say we're just about there towards the Christmas break, and really give an acknowledgement to everyone who's been working hard throughout the year from within Wellington Water and obviously the shareholder councils and our iwi partners. Just to really wanted to make a particular comment about the work that's been done over the last 12 months in regards to reducing the risk of a water shortage over the summer period. If we were to rewind 12 months, you'll remember some of the pretty concerning reporting that was coming through to this committee and also the summit that we held around the risk of a water shortage and the steps that were needing to be taken. Just want to acknowledge the efforts or focus that this committee has put on that particular challenge, and in return, of course, the work on the ground from Wellington Water, the board, and also Te Mata Arawai, who's stood alongside Wellington Water and focusing on this particular challenge. And that has created some pretty good results. And while Nick Leggett was very clear to remind me that we're not completely out of the woods, there could always be a challenge or an issue that makes this issue rear its head over summer. We've got some pretty good stats that are looking positive. So current modelling shows that the risk of a water restriction level 2 has gone from 100% last summer down to 5% this summer, and level 3 from 70% to 1%, and level 4 from 33% to less than 1%. So that's a pretty outstanding outcome, and just an acknowledgement of the team, and I know they'll speak to that more in the report. We did also have a meeting with Minister Brown yesterday, and I think that he also acknowledged the efforts that have been made in reducing that particular risk as well. So well done. As part of that, there's also been a big effort in getting on top of the leaks, and you'll see that through the reporting for each individual council. And I think, as I shared with the Minister yesterday, probably for the last 3 months, it's the first 3 months of my mayoralty where I haven't had a complaint when we look at the monthly complaints that come through the office about a leak. So that in itself, I think, was a pretty strong message for me that that's a challenge we're getting on top of. But of course, that will be ongoing and potentially get harder. And we know that renewals are really the only proper way to get on top of the leaky pipe issue. Also, just to acknowledge some of the work which has happened in November, we marked the completion of the Kaitoki Pipe Bridge with a karakia ceremony. The pipe bridge safeguards drinking water supply for our region, supplying up to 140 litres per day of untreated water from the Kaitoki intake to the Te Marua treatment plant, which on average supplies about half of the region's daily water demand, and also acknowledging the challenges at Seaview Treatment Plant in our patch, acknowledging Patrick, Nick and the team who fronted a community meeting just a few weeks ago, and the efforts that are obviously being done to mitigate the odour issues, Jeremy, as well, just acknowledging you and those that work, and of course the medium to long-term challenges with that plant. So there's obviously a little bit in the paper on that as well. So finally, just want to wish everyone all the best for the Christmas break. I hope you get a restful period. I'm sure 2025 is going to throw heaps of interesting things at us, just as 2024 has, but make sure you do get that rest in. So thanks, everyone. We'll move through to item 7, which is the Local Water Done Well legislation and water service delivery plan update. So Dougal, welcome. So Dougal's, of course, the Program Director of Water Reform for Wellington Water Councils, and you've got a presentation for us and a bit of a verbal update. Over to you, Dougal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just 3 brief points to cover today. The first is in relation to the third bill giving effect to Local Water Done Well. So this was introduced on the 10th of December, and we expect it to have its first reading next week, which will confirm the timeline for submissions. The government has signalled that it'll be a full submissions process, so we're expecting that we'll have until the end of February to review and make submissions on this third bill. This will be really important. The bill is broad and deals with a number of very complicated issues to deal with the enduring arrangements around water management and establishment of new organisations. At this point, our first review is that the bill is aligned with what we expected and was signalled in 8th of August, but there will be a number of detailed matters that we need to consider and ensure that are aligned with the direction of travel we have, and the opportunity to submit on that will help to line that up with where we want to go as a region. In addition to the third bill, DIA have also released a substantial amount of updated guidance, so that builds on the guidance that was released on the 8th of August, and also provides further guidance in relation to establishment of new water services entities and CCOs, etc. Some potential opportunities to build on this. It provides some template guidance around things like shareholding agreements, constitutions, transfer agreements, etc. We're obviously still working through the 500-600 pages of material which came out from DIA on Tuesday, so there will be further updates provided in relation to this matter as we go forward. The second point just wanted to cover was a bit of progress in relation to water services planning, and as members will be well aware, all councils have contemplated the issue of options for consultation on service delivery models. And the point that we've now reached with decisions from Wellington City Council and Upper Hutt City Council on Tuesday this week is that 5 councils in the region have committed to the regional model being their preferred model for consultation. So this is a very positive sign. The other 5 councils that we've been working with are obviously considering other options as well, all of whom also looking at CCO type models. So in relation to the Metropolitan Wellington Council's program, we're now moving into phase 2, which really focuses on the development of that water services plan and the implementation plan for a new CCO. Quite a lot of progress since the last meeting, and really the key issues moving forward is submissions on Bill 3, make sure we're well aligned with what's intended, starting to prepare the consultation materials for all councils. So all councils are looking to consult around mid-March to mid-April on this. Looking at the delivery model and making sure that we're ready for the development and approvals of the water services plan as we move through mid to late 2025. The last issue, just to really highlight, and I noted this last meeting as well, as we move forward with planning for a new water services organisation, this obviously has some critical interdependencies with the ongoing operations and improvements that Wellington Water are planning and are discussing with you as a committee. We'll continue to work with Pat and his team to make sure that there is good interface between the planning for a new organisation and Wellington Water as it operates currently. And I'll just highlight a number of key points there that we're really focusing on. The first one, which is quite live, is working together across councils and with the support of Wellington Water as our trusted advisor to ensure that we've got the best possible view of a water services plan and the investment that's required to demonstrate financial sustainability. The second big issue is obviously the IT investment that councils are contemplating. The capability, the IT capability that Wellington Water has that can transfer to a new entity will be really an important input and interdependency with the capability of an organisation if we're looking at an accelerated time frame for that being established. And then obviously some other kind of key programs and contracts and that focus on value for money, so that really the new entity has got a bow wave of positive momentum to build upon from the work being led and delivered by Wellington Water. But thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dougal. Is there any questions from members? No? Okay. So I'll move that we set a note to Dougal's report for December. Any back discussion, all that aye. Those against, declare that carried. Okay, moving through to item 9, which is the company and governance update on page 22 of the agenda. So Patrick Doherty and Nick Leggett, welcome. Cool. We've got other board members as well. Welcome.
Yes.
Bill. Yeah. Okay, I'll pass it over to you, Nick.
Kia ora koutou. The reason that I have fellow directors here is not because we have some ominous thing to tell you. It's more just to show you their faces and allow them to be involved in any discussion or questions at the table. So Leanne Southey and Bill Bayfield join me at the table today, and Mahina Pukitapu apologises, but just thought it was good. Oh, she's online. We'll handle difficult questions to Mahina. Look, I just wanted to briefly summarise the governance aspects of what is in front of you in this report today, and also discuss a couple of other issues as they come up. Obviously, the organisational delivery plan continues, and that came out of the budgetary error earlier in the year. That work really has overtaken, in quite a positive way, the direction of the organisation as it continues to lift its performance on a day-to-day basis. And critically, it builds into a transition and a handover of what our collective intent as being a capable organisation to a new water entity. I've indicated to you previously that there will be some surprises and pain ahead as we uncover things, and the new Chief Executive, Pat, uncovers things. I won't be shown to be a liar in telling you that, but out of discomfort, there will also be that lift in performance. There'll be more transparency and the right kind of preparation that takes us to that new entity. Pat will talk about the organisational restructure, which is a key part of that change plan. I just want to mention the systems improvement and the IT investment. The board is taking, as you would expect, key oversight of this project, but also I want to stress that councils will be critically involved as well as we scope, plan and test and deliver new systems for Wellington Water and whatever entity succeeds it. The council involvement, we hope that there will be an external advisory group established with your CTOs, chaired by an independent external expert. We will hope to be able to present some timelines in the new year. It's worth reinforcing that there are two systems, construction, project management and information management, which are at the end of their lives next year. So we have to proceed on replacements. We don't have any choice. We are taking the risk with those broader systems to really do the work in preparation of a budget being made available and agreed to by councils in their annual plans next year. We recognise there is no guarantee, but actually these are critical systems that should have been invested in many years ago or over time. Wellington Water is an organisation that's grown very quickly, And we are now in the position of having to secure improvements around that. So, and all the support and the change program and the capability improvement that is required when you're trying to lift an organisation's capability. Those two large ones that are going to be the sort of lion's share of investment are integrating an asset management and finance system, and also that customer management system. Pat has made the point previously, but I will make it here today. We're not seeking to gold plate this investment. We are looking at off-the-shelf solutions. I think that's important in the climate, and it would be what the committee would expect. I'd just like to touch on as well the value for money review that has been driven by shareholders in your letter of expectation this year. I think we're in a better position now as a board and as an organisation to drill down. We are doing that, particularly around the contracting and consulting arrangement that deliver your water services, where the significant amounts of your OPEX and CAPEX are invested. This work, I'm hoping, will be available for us in the new year. We've obviously, it's going to mean that the chief executive and the team are going to have to look at the contractual arrangements around our alliance and consulting panels, and he perhaps can touch on that a little bit more. But I just want to say, given the interest from this committee and among shareholders into value for money, we are taking that incredibly seriously, and we're hopeful that not only will we be able to demonstrate to you where the money is being spent, we'll also be able to be in a position to show you where savings can be made. You will have noted the wastewater review paper, and while that is operational in nature, the board will be ensuring that the action plan in the report is carried out, and that improvements to the relationship between Wellington Water and the contractor that runs the wastewater treatment plants will improve over time. I think it's worth saying that both sides are taking that seriously and are committed to improving that. And it's also, I think, worthwhile underlining that the age and condition of wastewater treatment plants are poor, as is the network, and we'll continue to highlight and discuss this reality with the committee into 2025. You will have seen the water shortage discussion. Mayor Barry, as chair, you've outlined those numbers. I want to thank councils for their taking water loss and acute water shortage seriously by allocating more money for reactive leak repairs. Many thousands of leaks have been repaired this year. It is, however, not a sustainable position, and I'm not used to being doubting Thomas, Mayor Barry, but I do have to put the position that this is a short-term fix because we're seeing growth in our reactive maintenance budgets, begin to take over where we should be actually investing in pipe renewal. And so the opening of the DAF facility at Temarua, really positive, and really want to recognise Greater Wellington in that work. We're looking at a budget of between $90 and $100 million. The project isn't finished yet, so we're unable to give an exact figure, but early indications are obviously significantly more water is able to be pushed through the facility. That will buy us some short-term cover while we deal with the sort of the structural challenges and the asset challenges in that zone. So that's it from me. I'm happy to hand over to Pat, but there might be some questions.
Any questions for Nick? Happy to pass it over to Pat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a lot of what I'm about to say, I have already said to some of the councils, but not to all of you. So bear with me if you hear it again. And of course, every time we do it, Nick steals a little bit more of my speech, and I have to be flexible. So I'll talk about reticulation. I noticed in the notes from the minutes from the last meeting, I said I wasn't too concerned about the reticulation compared to other issues, but I do want to talk about the reticulation today. So we have roughly 6,100 kilometres of water and wastewater pipe that we manage on behalf of 6 councils. Last year we relayed 24 kilometres of pipe, which meant we were aiming for an average replacement age of only 250 years. This year we had hoped to relay 9 kilometres of pipe, which means we're aiming for an average replacement age of 670 years. So is it any wonder the pipes are leaking? And it's not my imagination. When I started with Wellington Water, they gave me a new phone, and it gets alerts. And one of the alerts it gets is whenever there's a significant pipe break. And when it seemed to be buzzing every day or two. So I got someone to do a quick analysis. And in my first 7 weeks here, we had, in 49 days, we had 27 significant breaks. That's a crater in the ground, water charging to the surface. That is not normal. A water reticulation our size shouldn't be having that many breaks. But because it's got steadily worse in the Wellington region, people are used to it, and they shouldn't be used to it. So I think we've talked about the fact that we have the ability to ramp up capital works at about 30% a year. And to be honest, the reduction from 24 kilometres to 9 kilometres is a significant setback. Contractors in the region have laid off staff because there was not enough pipe relay work to do. But assuming we started at a base of, say, 15 kilometres a year and ramped up at 30% a year, it'll take us 5 years to get to a point where we're relaying roughly 80 kilometres a year. And that's roughly the stable position. That's how much we need to replace every year to keep up with the ageing of the pipes. It's not the only factor when you're replacing pipes, but eventually it starts to dominate. And then, assuming we continue to ramp up and start relaying 110 kilometres a year, it'll take us 6 years to catch up the ground we lost during that 5 years. So that's 11 years. And that's assuming the money tap turns on today and we could start ramping up. But of course, the money tap's not going to turn on for another 2 years. And so roughly we'll lose ground for another 2 years, and it'll take us roughly 2 years to catch back up. Which means that today is the best day we'll have for 15 years. And that's assuming the new organisation gets established on 1 July 26. So, and I appreciate that the amount of money we're talking about is beyond the reach of any individual council, but can I just say, please understand there is a serious urgency in this region to get that new company set up and delivering for the region. So please hurry. I would emphasise again, I'm not applying for a role in the new company, so I'm simply speaking as someone who cares about water networks and the Wellington region, that it's probably one of the most important things you're facing at the moment. So looking at the organisation, the structure I found is highly complex and slows us down badly. It's been deliberately set up so that no one GM can make a decision, and so we have endless meetings within the organisation as people try to achieve consensus, and then eventually, if they can't reach consensus, it comes to SLT, which would last all day sometimes. So we're changing that. I think within the first week I announced we're going to restructure, so we've consulted. We'll be announcing the results that early next week and making those changes straight after Christmas, so that by February we should have a new structure, and that should be starting to make a whole lot of difference to our organisation. And can I say, people say, oh, you must be facing challenges as you drive change through this organisation. That's not the case at all. I suggest something and people say, oh, that's fantastic, good news. One of the things we wanted was KPIs. And so one of my GMs suggested that to their staff. Yep, that's a good idea. They came back 2 days later with a sort of a detailed 8-page summary of the KPIs that they had clearly prepared some years earlier, had got out, dusted off, and felt empowered to introduce. So I don't know if I'm driving change or just trying to keep it at a manageable pace, but it's being well received. Value for money. It's as I say, we've got a draft report at the moment on value for money. It confirms my suspicions right from the start that we are not getting value for money. And the message I got very clearly from every chief executive I mentioned. I barely got in the door before we were talking about that. And there's a lack of tension. There was a lack of tension with our contractors as well. Too much focus on the words contractor and consulting whānau. And don't get me wrong, I have no problem with the word whānau, but our contractors and consultants are not family. There's nothing better than a good, healthy working relationship with a long-term maintenance contractor where they're making enough money to do a very good job, and we still feel that we're spending ratepayers' money wisely. And we've slipped away from that. And so we are making changes there to our contracting and consultant panels, and with the Alliance, introducing KPIs, being far more directive about who's going to do the work, and that'll be based on previous track record. Some of the consultant panel, they're in 3 groupings. We're going to break that up so we have a direct relationship with every consultant. We're going to put some of the work out to tender so that we get this ability to measure ourselves against them and looking at are we over-designing things as well. Some of these changes I'll be starting to drive in February. There's already quite a lot going on. Another thing that we're also looking to do is increase our staff numbers. We've lost that ability to be a smart purchaser. We're too reliant on consultants. We've identified 28 semi-permanent positions within the organisation that consultants are filling. Some of them, in some of those places, it's consultants managing consultants. And so we're in the process of starting to recruit those roles and backing out the consultants. And we think that we know we'll get much better value for money. And what's more, the internal knowledge of Wellington Water will improve year on year. But there's another 10 or 12 roles where they would be a corporate cost. And it's things like IT, health and safety, where we need more support as well. Nick's talked about our IT systems, but I think one of the biggest bombshells for me was realising that we don't have our own asset management system. We are reliant on 2 of our key contractors to provide us, let us use their asset management system. And of course, if I'm trying to create more tension in working relationships and push more value for money, then I'm always a little bit hamstrung if at the end of the day, I'm reliant on them for our core business. We don't have a finance system and we don't have a budgeting system, which directly relates to the mistake we made last year, where Deloitte's have described our systems, well, politely described them as far from optimal, not good, terrible, somewhere in that range, where we rely on spreadsheets. Old spreadsheets where over time a staff member has inadvertently typed a number into a panel into a square that was supposed to have a formula, and from then on people have to remember to always type a number into that square. It's not good. It's amazing we've got as far as we have without making a mistake of the scale before. So we're very grateful for the support we're getting for the IT implementation. As Dougal mentioned it as well, we're talking very closely with his team to make sure that anything we invest in IT is a no regrets investment. Realistically, after feedback from Hutt and Upper Hutt about was it deliverable in 2 years, we've looked at it again and we think 3 years is more achievable, which means that some of these systems Wellington Water will not get the direct benefit from. But what will mean is that the new Water Co will be able to hit the ground running. And as I've already talked about, it's critical that this new organisation hits the ground running and doesn't spend another 2 or 3 years sorting things out and get started. So I think I've talked enough, Mr. Chairman. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Pat. Is there any questions? Yep. Councillor Kirkbernand.
Sorry. Thank you, Pat, for those. I just had 2 questions, and that the first one relates to the moving from with a 10-fold increase in replacement pipes or further than that do you see significant cost savings being made by by encouraging larger contracts and longevity in the workability for that contract? And can you comment on that first, please?
Oh, absolutely. If the contractors can look and see that Wellington Water has its own, can raise its own money and commit to a year-on-year growth and then sustainable level of renewals, they'll invest in the equipment, because we're not just talking water pipes, we're talking wastewater as well. So thrust boring, trenchless technology, some of those bits of kit are quite expensive. And no contractor is going to buy them and then run the risk that it's parked up in their depot for a year because funding fell away again, which I suspect is what has happened to some contractors this year. And the staff that have been made redundant, they've probably left the region. And will they come back to Wellington? Not quickly, they won't come back. So yes, we will get better value for money. We can let bigger contracts so that they can cover an area, not so much in relocation costs. And I'm also looking at the idea that we're probably over-designing some of our stuff as well. And you could let a package of work to a contractor and say, so we need these water mains replaced, you do the design and build and give us the plans. Because it's not complicated.
Okay, thank you. And the second question really relates to the structure of operations and that. As an outsider looking in, I always feel that the partnership creates almost an oligopoly with similar standards for those working. Are there any intentions to introduce significant more competition into the pricing of works as you move forward? And so I'm just interested as a representative of residents in that, that I believe there must be opportunity there. If you can comment on that, please.
Yes, look, we're introducing KPIs into the Alliance partnership. That's the one you're talking about. And look, it's called an alliance, but it's not really. There is no real risk share. It's all on Wellington Water. And we are talking with Fulton Hogan about other ways of doing this that would bring much more attention into, and ready price comparisons into the relationship. And they're quite receptive to that. I mean, a lot of this is Wellington Water's fault. We could have done a benchmarking exercise 5 years ago or 4 years ago. We should have done one every year, in which case this would have all been fixed a long time ago. But we're trying to change now, and we're trying to change quickly. The challenge for me is there's a limit to how much change the organisation can cope with at any one time. We're changing, doing the restructuring, we're changing the way we work with the contractors and consultants, which will put more work on our staff, but will certainly produce value for money. And then we're talking about introducing IT systems, which is, you know, the biggest challenge with an IT system. It's the people changes that, you know, as we've talked about, we're going to buy systems off the shelf and we'll align our processes with those off the shelf systems. All of that has changed. So one of my challenges is picking the priorities and working through them best bang for bucks. But I have a list that's already about 2 pages long.
Representative Faulkner?
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions, Pat, and it's very heartening to hear some of the things that you're doing within the organisation. What will I see from the outside looking in 6-12 months from now that's different because of the interventions that you've talked about, like more tension in the purchasing, the structural changes? So if all of that didn't happen, what would I get different 12 months from now that I wouldn't get had we just stayed as a BAU prior to you coming in? Can you talk me through some of the changes I'd see?
I think you'll see a more flexible, responsive, transparent organisation, able to make decisions more quickly. I think you've already noticed an increase in the degree of transparency, whether you like it or not, you need to know. I think you'll certainly see better value for money and better levels of service, because we're starting to measure those things. And if you don't measure things, then you don't know and nobody cares.
Sorry.
I think we shouldn't underestimate the size of the task to set up a new water entity by 1st of July 2026. So in 12 months, you should have a much greater sense that we can deliver. You will be the second biggest entity in New Zealand already, with just the 5 of you deciding to do that. Many of the other district councils are going alone or going in smaller groups. You will have a head start if we get this right, and you have a lot to do. So to my mind, you should see that.
Thank you. And my last question is, when you use the term value, does that only mean money? Because you use value for money as a interconnected sentence. So the question is value just money?
In that context, I was talking dollars, yes, but I did talk about more agile, more responsive, more transparent. That's value as well, but I guess I was breaking it down into its components, and better decision making. All those things add value. And as Bill has said, I think the best value we can deliver is something that could potentially form the basis of the new water company. I think that could save this region another couple of years, and as I've talked about, we can ill afford another 2 or 3 years.
Just to follow up on that. So I suppose what I'm asking is if something can make a significantly better environmental outcome, but you're needing to invest a little bit more, I suppose my question is, does the value for money trump the benefit of other factors that may be cultural or environmental? Or that's what I was, because if we just use money as our measure, my question is that the best approach to take? And if not, how do you make sure that other values can be incorporated into that decision making?
So sorry, I missed the point of your question. So one of the core values of Wellington Water is te mana o te wai. So it frustrates our staff enormously that 40% of the water that we take out of the rivers and the aquifers doesn't get to the customers and would be better served staying in the rivers and the aquifers. Unfortunately, very little I'm going to do in the next couple of years is going to fix those problems. And Nick talked about the concerns we have with our treatment plants and the massive investments required there, and the Seaview outfall pipe. Those are only things that this new organisation will have the financial depth to grapple with. And so, again, I think that getting our organisation in a fit state to be potentially the basis for a new water co will see far better environmental and cultural outcomes in the Wellington region than we've seen in a long time.
Very good questions. Mayor Baker.
Thank you. It's more of a comment, really. Thank you for this report. It was really good. Since you've been on board, it's extremely refreshing to see the changes that we probably should have all picked up at this table a couple of years ago. We've all been complaining, but not got to that final stage where, the IT system is something that is critical, and we shouldn't even be thinking about it. We should be just saying, yes, we need to do it, because actually the new entity, as you say, needs to start from day one. We've all got major work that needs doing. It's the only way we're going to fund it. So I think like you say, we just need to get onto it. And I thank you for this report, because actually it's really vital.
Any other? Yep, Mayor Whānau.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo Mayor Baker's comments. That was a great report. I really appreciate your bluntness and honesty. And I think it's something that we've wanted for a long time. So well done.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. What I'm going to do, just as an additional recommendation, I think that also I wrote this before Representative Falconer's questions, so I'm happy to maybe edit it to reflect some of your comments, but I did want to sort of put on the record from this committee that we reaffirm our priority around Wellington Water and the board's focus on value for money, and that Wellington Water report back on progress at our 14th of March. Will that work? 14th of March meeting of this committee. So I think that that's going to be an important piece of work that lands at this committee, given its focus. So I'm seeing nods. Are we happy to put that forward as a recommendation? We're okay with that? Okay. So that will be alongside the noting recommendation as well. So I'll move those. Do I have a seconder? Mayor Baker. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. I declare that carried. Moving through to the item 10, which is the annual plan advice. And we've got Julie, welcome. This is on page 62 of the agenda. Pass it over to you, Julie.
Kia ora. You've already had the scale of the challenge outlined to the committee. Recognising the financial constraints of councils to afford what's needed, it is our role to give you advice on the funding that is required, and we have provided advice to your council to address the Three Waters assets challenges, as well as the organisational capability uplift, the funding that's required. The rationale is, there's further rationale in the paper. It is quite detailed in terms of what's required for the funding the organisation. I think I'll just happy to take questions on the paper from there. I can tell you that we are focusing on your second year of your LTPs and sort of updating new information from there. The program shifts quite quickly. For South Wairarapa, obviously we're providing a full LTP set of options for your consideration. Kia ora.
Thanks, Julie. Is there any questions from the paper? No. No, good work.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's no questions, we'll move to the recommendations, which just a few checks. These are just the receiving and noting recommendation. I'll move that. Seconded by Mayor Guppy. Happy Guppy to second that? Yep. All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Okay, moving through to item 11, which is the Organisational Capability Plan, page 69 of the agenda, and we've got Wayne Maxwell. Welcome, Wayne. Won't be a stranger to many in the room.
So, Mr. Chair, Wayne is here as our acting GM Business Services and CFO, and we're very grateful to have him here on such short notice. Right. And within the organisation on such short notice. He's known about the meeting for some time.
Excellent. Okay, pass over to you, Wayne.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for the welcome, Mayor Barry. When Pat offered me this opportunity, he assured me that I needn't be bored anymore. Not sure what he meant by that in the first place, but I'm pleased to be here. As some of you will know, I've worked with Pat before, so we understand each other quite well. I understand I'm here for whatever I can do for clarity and simplicity. I'm not going to speak directly to any of the points in the paper, which I think sets them out really well, and I will be happy to answer questions as I can. Just want to say that trying to rebuild this plane while you're trying to build a new plane is quite an undertaking. And I too have been taken aback by what people are trying to work with. But I guess it's not really what you need from me. You've heard it really well from our chair and our CEO. But I'm really heartened by the quality of the people in the organisation who are trying to do their best. And I'm here to help where I can. So I'll answer questions if that helps.
If I can just add. So we have identified, and we've given you a summary of everything we need to fix all the problems that Wellington Water has. But can I just emphasise that the most important thing is the $37.5 million over 3 years for IT systems. That will make the biggest difference to us. Even, you know, as the organisation understands that this is achieving some support around council tables, is you have no idea what a difference that's making to people's to the morale of some of the staff who have seen this reform come and the possibility of good systems and then losing it again. And bear in mind, just about everyone here has worked for a council that has these sorts of systems. They came to Wellington Water thinking this was coming to something bigger and better, and found that they weren't. So that would be our number one priority in terms of making a difference to Wellington Water. And the second would be, I think we've asked for $1.5 million extra to help fund some additional staff costs, which again will help a lot with the smart purchaser value for money. Getting more people in our procurement team, better able to negotiate, hold people to account, you know, monitor KPIs, those sorts of things. We look like we're a big organisation, but a lot of it is absorbed in business as usual. So that would be of enormous help. And then we've identified the additional $5 to $6 million. But realistically, there's a lot of recommendations, and we won't get those all done in this next 2 years. I'm sorry, but if we did, I really would have to stop flying the plane. And it's another $5 or $6 million, which I think, to be honest, is probably out of council's reach. So, but those are my two big asks. Is the first two. Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne. Thank you, Pat. Is there any questions? Deputy Mayor Salafuta.
Thank you all. I think we all clearly understand the position that the organisation is in, and the requests that you're making. My question, though, is I note that you are taking an unconstrained view of investment needed to lift Wellington Water's capability, and I do wonder if that is appropriate given the enormous amount of pressure that councils are under to reduce their costs, and to, you know, both from central government and from communities to lower their rates impacts and things. And so I do question the appropriateness of an unconstrained view, and I'd like your thoughts on that, please.
To be honest, it's a highly constrained view. I'd imagine Dougal can talk to it more, but I guarantee that as the new Waterco is set up, they'll be investing in a whole lot more IT systems that we're not asking for. That these are the bare bones that Wellington Water should have been equipped with 5 to 10 years ago. And as I said, they are there to, we will get some benefit out of it. As I said, there'll be a huge lift in morale, but what it will do is set the region up to hit the ground running with the new Waterco. So no, these are not unconstrained investments. I mean, you heard me say that what my two priorities were. I signalled that, you know, we were relaxed about whether you gave us any of the extra $5 to $6 million, and also I think I signalled that we were reasonably relaxed if we couldn't get any more money for networks. We'd like it, you know, any dollars you can put in, but realistically, the biggest thing is help this region get its act together for 1 July 26.
Thank you. With that response, I wonder if the paper's recommendation is correct, because it says quite clearly an unconstrained view of the investment needed to lift Wellington Water capability has been included in annual plan advice to councils.
I think it's correct that the unconstrained review has been presented, but that has been contextualised by the comments from Pat. Is that correct, Pat?
That's correct, Mr. Chair, and that's the message I've been giving to each council as we've been going around as well, is the two things that are most important to us. Thank you.
Now, we've just got Representative Lutini and then Mayor Guppy.
Tēnā koutou katoa, nā mihi nui kia koutou kua tai mai e te hui nei. Just want to first acknowledge really, Pat, you've come in and really lifted the lid on the internal organisational operations, identifying those foundational improvements that you've talked to us today that have been raised over years. within this space. So I just want to acknowledge that. My concern is really the management of the risks during this period of time of transition. You're talking about over 3 years, the system improvements needing to be made. So when you're given the example of the spreadsheets, a very manual, archaic kind of way of managing things, how can you assure us, that these risks are being identified and mitigations?
So that's a challenge. When we presented the budgets to the board, we said we think that they're as good as we can get. We don't think there are any major errors in them, and any minor errors we will find as we continue to work on systems till February, and we think that we will be able to cope with those errors. So no, I can't give you a rock solid guarantee that our numbers are right, but we have spent an awful lot of time and resources going over and over them, looking for anything that could be significant. But Wayne's been on board for 3 weeks, and we're hoping that by the end of January-ish, we will have an idea of, because what Deloitte's have told us is simplify our systems. They're too complicated, you're making this too hard. And unfortunately, our staff instead doubled down and dived into twice as much detail. And so I had to back them out of that and get them to look at the big picture. But that's why Wayne is on board. He's done this for me before. So what I can say with confidence is we'll be in a much better place by when we come back to talk about the next round of annual plan budgets in February.
May I add a few comments? Thank you for the pressure publicly, Pat. That wasn't my comment. Nearly a month, actually. So I have had to focus in this order on the things. The numbers must be right. Then the processes, and then the systems, because we don't have the systems right now. And what you're hearing is the processes are incredibly complicated. And you'll understand from your own environments that under pressure and under public pressure, people's response is often to double down, work harder, spin the mouse wheel faster, and make more mistakes. So this is an organisation that really focuses on risk in everything that it does. If anything, I would say that the myriad of reports that I see internally that focus a whole lot on risks sometimes lose the focus on what the most important risks are. So we have a lot of risk focus. What I need to do is narrow it down and focus on the things that will move the dial first. So we will get the numbers right, and I'll work with the colleagues across the councils who've been really helpful and welcoming to me, thank you, to date. As we improve the systems, I can already see that our allocation methodologies, people are worried about 5% here and there on an individual, for example, about their timesheeting. That doesn't move the dial. It's not helping anybody. So we will simplify. If we oversimplify, we will then move to add some stuff back. But I think that's better than where we are right now. What we're also doing is all the usual things that an organisation should do. So we've got to internally audit our processes to make sure that we've got comfort in the data that we're doing. So I'm working with my finance team on what's the internal audit program going to be and what are the most important things that we can pick off. We're not going to get everything done. You've heard that from Pat already, but these are the sort of things that are just good practice that we will make sure we're focusing on the things that make the best difference. Hope that helps.
Thanks, Wayne. Ben Cuppy.
Thanks. Pat, thanks for your description of such a shambolic organisation. We've been saying that for a long time. But I have a question about the hard sell on the IT system, because I'm sure at some stage when the new entity's up, central government's going to want standardised reporting. You've seen it in other areas. So there's no guarantee that the systems that you're wanting to implement are what the new entity will want itself.
I'm not sure if I'm the right one to answer this question or whether Dougal's the right one to answer this question, But I can assure you that we're working very closely with Dougal's team and with Wendy and the entire reform group.
Well, those two aren't going to determine what the new systems are. The new entity will do that, not Dougal or Wendy.
The plan is the new entity will inherit the IT systems that we're investing in. That's what we talk about with a no regrets investment. There will be generic systems, and I think the government has to move away. When the government was setting up 4 entities or 10 entities, it was designing structures, it was designing asset management systems and financial systems for them all. And all that work stopped and has been put on the shelf. So that now, from my understanding, is entities will be more able to chart their own course. Yes, there will be reporting required to Taumata Arawai, and there'll be reporting required to that economic regulator that isn't formed yet. So, and when they tell the new organisation what reporting they want, then they will produce those reports. The generic systems that we're buying will be able to produce those reports. But I don't think the government's envisaging that every CCO that's established around the country is going to have the same IT systems. Definitely not.
Has anyone bothered to ask?
Happy to comment on that. When the government changed and the reform shifted from what was called Three Waters reform to local water done well, the very substantial investment that was made into an IT system that would have been required to be run by each entity was written off, and this government is definitely this is now the responsibility of councils, shareholding councils in the case of a new entity, and some of these things are somewhat simpler. It would have been nice to have a large entity with many different shareholders, but actually all the shareholders in the proposed new entity are sitting around this table, so they are substantially the same, minus, apologies to South Wairarapa, minus South Wairarapa, but the rest of you will be there. So the rules of engagement for the new entity are set, will be set by this table, in fact, under a new umbrella, but the government's new reform is definitely envisaging much more independence, and there will be a common reporting requirement, but not a common IT system.
Is there any other questions? Representative Rahina August.
Ngā mihi atu kia tātou, and thank you again for the update. I'm just reflecting again on the kōrero that's been shared here today, and I think it's really great to hear it. I just wanted to ask how you think mana whenua are going to be able to prepare for the same discussion and for the new entity, because of course as partners to council, we don't sit here with the same pōtai or the same mandate, but you know, we do know that if we start on this journey together, that potentially we're not going to have issues in terms of our relationship as well. I'm just wondering what you've thought of in terms of preparing that space as well. Kia ora.
I'll take that question. It's more a question for the Advisory Oversight Group this afternoon, which both in fact, all the iwi in the region, the wider region, were participating in, and certainly Ngāti Toa and Taranaki Whānui have been involved in that, and will continue to be involved in that. So the pathway for the new entity is definitely probably got a better embedding of iwi into the new entity. The design hasn't been done yet of any new entity. That's the kind of next stage, so that's where that will sit. And certainly, you know, that's been one of the principles in the new water reform process, is that we have wanted to embed that from the start, rather than kind of we've retrofitted mana whenua input into Wellington Water sort of after the fact, a bit awkwardly.
Thanks, Wendy. I think it'd be really great just to make sure there's a connector into this committee as well, just so that we all understand what's happening, because I might not necessarily be involved with it over here, but I am at this tipu. So just to make sure that we know what's happening in both spaces. Thank you.
I think it's a really good point, and it's something the AOG will need to grapple with now that people have kind of chosen their general direction of where they're looking to travel, so we know who's in and who's out. Yeah, good point. Any other questions? No? Okay, so we'll move through to the recommendations, which again are just noting recommendations 1 and 2. So I'll move those. Do I have a seconder? Mia Whānau, happy to second. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Okay, moving through to the item number 12, which is the Metropolitan Acute Water Shortage Risk, page 75. Charles, welcome.
Kia ora. The acute water shortage has been pretty well covered already, so I'll just note that the paper recommends that you note the likelihood of water restrictions this summer, but since drafting the paper just this week, we've received the new likelihoods, which has been stated, is the chance of level 2 is 5%, level 3 1%, and level 4 less than 1%. So that information has just been passed through to the relevant councils yesterday, and we'll be going out through with the other stakeholders to make sure they're informed. So I just thought that's important to note before you accept the likelihoods that are in the paper.
Great, thanks, Charles. Question, how do we, obviously last year we're in a very different position and how we then communicated with our residents. Thoughts on how we communicate, obviously a much better position now without, you know, people then turning on the hoses in celebration. Yeah.
Yeah, it's our communications team has been tightly knit with the council communication teams about how to articulate and communicate to the consumer this kind of what could outwardly appear a rapid transition from an acute shortage to suddenly we've almost very little chance of level 2, which would be quite a unique thing for us not to go into level 2 in the region. So that's being well coordinated. And the other thing we're doing is softly and appropriately introducing the discussion around the private leaks. Last year, we made it very clear that with an entity with many thousands of leaks, didn't have much of a moral mandate to be very demanding of the consumers on the private leakage, and so now we're just introducing that context, but we're doing that in a careful way and in full consultation with all the councils to make sure that that's a collective process.
So a bit of a work on at the moment. Will there be sort of an approach prior to Christmas with that with the councils?
Sorry, I should have made that clear. That the communication strategy has been in place since July at the beginning of this year, so we've allowed for these different scenarios, and so that communication strategy is shared with the council's comms teams, and it's underway collectively now, so they should be fully abreast of what we're doing.
So maybe if any of the members want to get a brief from their respective teams, each council will be well aware, and obviously we can get that through to iwi as well if needed. Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Mayor Baker, question?
Question about the comms, really. It's great news for that, but I'd like to be able to hear you say you still need to buy a water tank to conserve if we have an emergency. Like seriously, we're saying, you know, the risk is low, but actually every damned house needs a tank. We sell them quite cheaply now, so we should be actually looking at investment to make sure that we get it into each house. I know in Porirua I had to deliver water one day to someone when the taps went out because they had no water to take their pills. So it is still something we need to look at, and just in the comms.
Yeah, we totally agree, and so we'll make sure we take that on board. And we do work really closely with Remo to make sure that we optimise your spend in this space with their needs over there, because at the end of the day, we're all working for the same purpose with the residents. So we'll take that on board and ensure that happens.
I think they listen more to you guys than they do to Remo, to be really honest.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Representative Ricky August.
Oh, kia ora, Charles. Just a quick partai question about comms in other languages. So, you know, not only our community, of course, but we know that we have a big community here that don't necessarily have the best grasp on English. I'm just thinking about some of the people that live around us in Johnsonville. So, yeah, is it part of your strategy to think about those communities that need to don't celebrate with the hose on all Christmas, because, you know, they just might not get the nuances of what we're talking about?
Let's get a look and nod. Yep.
Kia ora. Vanessa McFarlane, Head of Comms and Engagement at Wellington. So cool to have so much interest in comms, actually. So yes, we have worked really hard with DIA to get a lot of our comms and marketing material translated into a variety of different languages, including Te Reo, but also the Pacifica languages and the Asian languages as well, because we know that there's a large Asian community. So that's all done, and we'll be rolling that out. I guess just a comment on terms of our larger comms strategy this year, because the urgency has gone, which is good news, but also we want to encourage people to continue on those good habits. So this year, it's really about building on the really good behaviours that we saw the residents, you know, do last year, and just keeping an eye on that and keeping on those good behaviours that we built up. It's also about talking about the longer term risk, and you'll hear that today, right? So yes, we've got the immediate term, you know, sorted out, but actually, if we don't continue on this pathway, we're going to be in a very similar position in a couple of years' time. So being really, really clear that it's actually a longer term game that we're trying to play. Hopefully that helps.
Any other? Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor Sadler-Footer.
Thank you, Charles. Do you have any comment on the situation in South Wai? Note where you're non-metro, and we're not necessarily covered in this report, but we have probably got like 20% less rainfall in our area over the last month or so than we did this time last year. Just wondering where we're sitting.
So the forecast, the NIWA forecasting indicated a similar risk spread as last year. So we've been chatting to your teams about that. We've also improved how closely and quickly we monitor all the different reservoirs. So just today, we noticed an uptick and passed that back over to the team because I think we've got a much better tuned into those smaller reservoirs and looking for those immediate changes. Because there it's not so much a supply, it's the amount that we can hold in the reservoirs at any one time. And that also is building on our ability to make sure that when we see a change that it wasn't expected, that we go to the right, whether it's your parks and recreations area or is it the consumers. And we also are going into the summer are much more attuned to the large events that you have and preparing the narrative correctly as we build up towards those events.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll move to the recommendations, which are just recommendations 1 and 2. I'll move those. Do I have a seconder? Representative Falconer, any discussion? Just to say, Charles, an acknowledgement to you, the team, for the outstanding effort over the last 12 months. I think that the reporting has been absolutely excellent to this committee, and obviously to get to the position this position is a really positive news story. A news story that probably won't be picked up as much as maybe the previous, but just well done to the team. So please pass that on. Thanks. Okay, all those in favour say aye. Those against no. I declare that carried. Item 13, which is the water metering program, and Ian McSherry. Welcome, Ian. It's on page 101 of the agenda. I'll pass it to you, Ian.
Thank you. it's been quite interesting to listen to the discussion around the table this morning. It's a lot of current pain points, I guess. I'm here to talk about something that's a bit more of a legacy, I guess, we're going to hopefully leave and make progress on for the new entity and the future of water in the region. I guess just a reminder, it is part of our three-pronged approach to making progress on our water security, along with increased storage and also reduction activities to reduce our leakage. The programme we're establishing is very different to the work we normally do at Wellington Water. I think I worked out a wee while ago, and I told the board a couple of months ago, to roll out meters to our region, we'll have to have a meter installed once every 4 minutes for 5 years of a working year. So it's a massive undertaking. And not only that, we also have the technology to support it, which is a big thing, and obviously the change that will be needed as part of all that. So really, you know, the approach we've taken, or we are taking to the programme, is to make sure we do that well and take a bespoke approach. I've been quite pleased, I guess, quietly pleased that the approach we're taking also tallies quite well with some of Pat's comments earlier around having capability in-house. So we're making good decisions, and we're smart about what we're doing. And also the way we're working with councils in an integrated way. So we're kind of transparent and involving councils in the progress and the work we're doing. I guess the key deliverable we have this year is the business case, and we are into that work now solidly and making good progress. You know, I think the approach is well outlined in the paper, so I'm happy to take questions from there. Have you got anything to add, Pat?
So one of the challenges is, of course, we're still working on a business case and looking at a pilot as well. And there's been a lot of discussion in-house about that. And one of the things we really need to do is have a better definition of what we think we might be doing through the business case process before we start with a pilot. And the other thing is, it would be useful from that pilot to try and get a better idea of the leaks on the private side. You know, particularly in the Hutt Valley, we're sitting on river gravels where we suspect a lot of leaks aren't coming to the surface. So we will probably look at a larger pilot than we initially discussed as well. It'll give us more economies of scale, but also give us a much bigger picture. You know, that we're going to be putting in tens of thousands of meters, so a pilot of 1,000 or 2,000 might be more appropriate. So these are all ideas we're bouncing around at the moment, but until we get further with the business case, we're probably a little bit reluctant to start work on a pilot. We want to be testing what we think we're going to be building.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Easy. Okay, we'll move through to the recommendations, which is just to receive a note of the report. Do I have a seconder? I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Mayor Baker. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Thank you, Ian. Appreciate it. Moving through to item 14, which is the Wellington Water Committee Letter of Expectation, page 104. Wendy.
This has come round rather quickly. We were delayed in the last year in finalising the letter of expectation, but this is the normal routine. I have worked with other councils in the region and circulated it to iwi. I had some comments. Some of them came back a little bit later than the report went to the to Democratic Services. So if there are changes, they will need to be addressed in the meeting. I've noticed a couple of grammatical errors. I will tidy those up. But we have tried to pick up the changed circumstances around reform, rely on the capability work that has already been outlined in the meeting this morning, and relied on that into the future. So those are the main changes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions before we go to discussing the letter of expectations? No questions? Okay, so how do we feel about that? Does that encapsulate the priorities that we want to set? Okay, I'm seeing no shaking of the heads, so great, excellent. Well, well done, Wendy. Work behind the scenes to work with the other councils. That's good, it's positive. Okay, so I will move that we note receive the report and approve the annual shareholder and partners letter of expectations to Wellington Water, and that authorises myself as the committee chair to sign the letter with those small edit changes. But basically that will be it, since there's no feedback from around the table. Okay, so I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Representative Rahina August. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. I declare that carried.
Mr. Chair, sorry, can you
yes.
note that South Wairarapa are abstaining from that vote, please?
Abstaining, okay. Okay, so we'll note that down. Item 15, which is just an information item on the Forward Work Programme. Any comments on that? No. Okay, so I'll move that we receive and note the draft Forward Work Programme, future workshops, seconded by Mayor Baker. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. I declare that carried. Moving to item 16, which is questions. I've received no questions. So we can now move to exclusion of the public. And I'll move that the public be excluded from item 18, recruitment of directors to Wellington Water. And I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Mayor Baker. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried.
Can I just make a comment, Mr. Chair, that Pat rightfully pointed to staff morale as being important. I'd like it noted that both him and the chair made no effort whatsoever, and I'm very disappointed, to dress as Santa today. I don't expect flashing lights, but a Santa hat would have been appropriate. And so the fact that they made no effort whatsoever, Mr. Chair, I'd like it noted.
Pat's just gone as red as a Santa hat, so there we go. No. Oh, we'll second that. All those in favour? No, thanks. Rawati.